So today we're taking a look at the Sony Xperia Pro-I, and the I stands for imaging because this phone is essentially a camera first and a phone second. It comes equipped with a 1-inch sensor, and it's actually the same sensor that Sony includes in its RX100 Mark VII camera. So with this phone, you're pretty much carrying the power of a professional compact camera with you at all times, which is a game changer for serious content creators. So the phone features a tall and narrow design, which I actually like a lot. The 21:9 aspect ratio makes it extremely easy to handle and use the phone with just one hand. It's got a 6.5-inch 4K 120Hz OLED display, and it features an 82.5% screen-to-body ratio. So the bezels are a little thicker than what we've seen on a lot of recent phones. It's also covered in Gorilla Glass Victus, which is the toughest Gorilla Glass available, so it's giving you some high-level drop and scratch protection. On one side, you have your volume rocker as well as your power button, which also serves as a side-mounted fingerprint sensor. And this is one feature that I absolutely love because your thumb naturally comes in contact with the sensor whenever you grab the phone. So grabbing your phone and unlocking your phone is all one fluid motion. And despite the sensor being smaller than most fingerprint sensors, it's still extremely accurate. You also have a dedicated camera shutter button, which really gives you the same feel of using a professional camera. On the other side is where you have your SIM tray as well as your micro SD slot. You're also getting a 3.5mm audio jack, which I'm sure for some will be a very pleasant surprise. On the back of the phone, you've got a matte finish, which is great for keeping fingerprints to a minimum. You also have a vertical 3-lens setup with a very minimal camera bump. Each lens is giving you 12 megapixels, so you've got a 16mm f2.2 ultra wide, a 50mm f2.4 telephoto, and the main lens is a 24mm f2.0 and f4.0 dual aperture lens. And the main lens is the only lens that features the 1-inch sensor. So to take advantage of that, the 24mm is the lens that you'll want to use the majority of the time. You also have an 8-megapixel selfie camera, but the performance is pretty unexciting compared to the rear cameras. Now, when it comes to video, the phone is able to shoot 4K up to 120 frames per second, which is something that a lot of DSLR and mirrorless cameras aren't able to do. The phone comes equipped with a Snapdragon 888 5G chipset, and you're getting 12 gigs of RAM as well as 512 gigs of onboard storage. The storage is also expandable with support for micro SD cards up to 1 terabyte, which you will likely need if you plan on shooting a lot of 4K footage. The battery is 4500 milliamps and it supports 30-watt fast charging. A complete charge requires about 2 hours, but the first 30 minutes will give you about 50% of your battery life. Now, one thing to mention is that the phone does not feature wireless charging, so for some that may be a big deal, but for others I don't think it'll matter that much. Operating the phone is extremely smooth. It's definitely on par with a lot of the other flagship phones. If you do a lot of gaming, you're going to be perfectly fine. Even with maxed out specs, you're not going to experience any sort of lag or delay. But let's go ahead and talk more about what really matters here, which is the photo and video capability. So instead of one dedicated camera app, Sony has actually included 3 different apps which really give you access to the full capabilities of the cameras. So the default camera app is called Photo Pro, and if you've ever used an actual Sony camera, the interface is extremely similar. You're able to switch between your different modes, so you have your program mode, your aperture priority mode, your shutter priority mode, manual mode, as well as an automatic mode. So if you're a serious content creator, more than likely you're going to use the manual mode and dial in all of your settings yourself. For a more point and shoot experience, you do have a basic mode, but buying this phone just to use the camera on basic mode is pretty much pointless. So the beauty is that you're going to get much more natural photos and videos compared to the overly processed images that you tend to get with a lot of other smartphones. Having that dual aperture means you're able to control the depth of field, so you're able to switch between f2.0 and f4.0 depending on how much of your background you want to be in focus. Now, other smartphones allow you to adjust your depth of field, but it's usually doing so with the help of artificial intelligence. You're also getting Sony's face and eye detection, so whenever you have a person in your frame, the phone is going to lock onto their eyes to keep their face in focus at all times. On top of that, you're getting real-time object tracking, so if you have a moving subject, you can lock onto that subject to make sure they also stay in focus at all times. Now, when it comes to nighttime photography, obviously most smartphones have a specific mode just for that, where they use artificial intelligence to lift the shadows and adjust the brightness to give you the best possible image. But with the Xperia Pro-I, you have more control, so you're able to get a little more creative. You can set a delayed shutter up to 30 seconds, which is going to allow as much light into the sensor as possible while keeping graininess and noise to a minimum. Also, with a delayed shutter, you're able to capture some really creative shots. Now, moving over to video, like I mentioned earlier, you're able to shoot 4K at up to 120 frames per second, which is going to allow you to slow your footage down in post and give you some very smooth slow motion shots. So the big takeaway here is if you're looking for a smartphone to give you some great point and shoot photos and videos, then this is not really the option for you. But if you're serious about photography and or videography and you want a fully capable 5G smartphone that's also the closest thing to a professional compact camera, then this is definitely the phone to consider. There's also the option of a vlogging kit, which you can get for the phone, which includes an external monitor as well as a grip, so that you can take full advantage of that 24mm lens to capture your vlog footage. So that's going to be it for this video. If you're interested in the phone, be sure to check out the affiliate links in the description to make sure you get the most up-to-date price. Also, do me a favor, if you found the video to be helpful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up as well as subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on social media to stay up to date on all the reviews that I'll have coming up. And aside from that, as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.